Greetings, fellow humans. I am Hugh.
And I am Man.
And together we are definitely not
Two
kobolds in a trench coat. We enjoy human activities, such as paying taxes,
having existential crises,
and RPG horror stories. Let's see what we've got today. Today, we have a murder hobo who goes full psycho when called out on it, a DM who made AI not safe for work material of the party without consent, and a Baldur's Gate 3 disaster tale. Player lashes out for not letting them be a murder hobo, by Reddit user Jack Defool. Hey everyone, I've been DMing on stream for a while, and this story happened over the span of 2 games. In the past, I had run another TTRPG for the same group, but the game died due to scheduling conflicts. One of the players brought their significant other to the game, and the significant other, let's call them Claire, is rough on the edges. Thing is, there was a moment on the current game where they are investigating a crime scene and a series of bizarre cases involving UFOs, men in black, etc. Delta Green. Thing is, when they are checking a car, the player, Claire, decides to break into the vehicle. The cop shows up and sees these 2 individuals trying to break in. The cop draws his gun thinking they are trying to break and enter. Thing is, the player characters have FBI badges. They can flash them and problem solved. Nope, Claire decided to pull a gun and shoot the cop. We had to convince Claire not to do that, but she justified herself by saying, "My character has PTSD. I decided not to keep arguing about it since we were live. During the last game, we are doing some chit chat before the stream, and I asked Claire, in a funny tone, and please try not to be trigger happy, which Claire decided to shout at me, "It's my character and I play it in whichever way I like. If you don't like the way I RP PTSD, then I can quit the game." Mind you, the game was about to start in 5 minutes and I had no time to deal with this BS, so I allowed the game to continue. During the stream, the player decided to put a bomb on the building, not caring if the other player characters made it out alive. By the end of the scenario, player's character declared that they went insane with what they had seen and decided to shoot the other player characters, killing one of the player's characters for the lols and then passing out. It felt like Claire was bored and wanted to cause chaos for the sake of chaos, like only playing because their partner was playing. I spoke with 2 players and they also felt uncomfortable due to this. They still want to keep playing, but we fear that they are a package deal, Claire and her girlfriend. So we are planning on continuing the game, but not telling them when we are playing, to soft kick them out of the game.
I mean, I'd just rip off the bandage and tell them, listen, you guys are, Claire is making everybody uncomfortable the way that they're RPing, so...
There is an enormous gaping hole in their plan, and that's the fact that they stream it live. It's not as if they can keep playing and not tell them. They are literally broadcasting it for the world to see that they are playing. So there's every chance they could see that. That's not a very good plan, OP, at least as far as I can see.
Yeah, it might buy you like a week and then maybe they'll start asking questions. But honestly, I would just tell them, listen, Claire, you're being a murder hobo and it's making other people uncomfortable. This isn't about how you roleplay PTSD. This is about you as a player.
Look, maybe the DM has anxiety and a fear of confrontation. So it might be hard for them, but at the end of the day, the DM or at least one of the other players, or even all together if they're not confident, need to have that conversation.
Yeah, have a murder hobo intervention, I guess. Something like that. But I do agree that Claire should absolutely be booted if at all possible, because that kind of behavior, that chaos for the sake of chaos, is counterproductive and just makes everybody uncomfortable and ruins everybody's fun.
Especially when you take it to the degree of, I'm going to plant a bomb in the building and blow up the party and then shoot at them.
And then just be like, oh, I'm going to just go insane. Like, okay. Again, if you want to have a chaos character like that, that's something that you could do, but you'd have to figure out a way to make it work so that you're not killing other party members.
When you're taking it to the point of domestic terrorism, I think everyone could agree you are crossing a line.
Yeah, that's just, about 5 bridges too far, I'd say. DM makes AI adult materials of the party, then disappears. By Reddit user Suspicious Cow 11. played D&D for years, but I've mostly played with longtime friends, and this is my only horror story. It started last year. I had just moved to the US to start a PhD in applied maths and was pretty lonely. The program was brutal, and I didn't have a lot of time for socializing, so my only friends outside of the department were thousands of miles away. At some point, I had mentioned that I played D&D to one of the other grad students, and he invited me to join his group.
So what you're saying, OP, is you do maths for studies and you want to do maths in your spare time. I think you might be overdoing the maths.
Hey, one is like practical, and the other one's applied maths.
Fair point. One of these kinds of maths does have dragons and beholders and magic, so it is kind of better.
But all jokes aside, this is the really great thing about D&D. So many people are into it that if you're like, hey, I play D&D and I'm alone in a country, chances that you're gonna find a group of people that play D&D are pretty high. Especially if you're, in a PhD for math, I would imagine. The group was mostly formed of people that he'd met at uni. He'd done his undergrad at the same institution, so a mix of people in their early 20s. Aside from the two of us, both 23 male, there was Dave, 25 male, who worked in finance, Zoe, 24 female, who was a med student, and Lily, 21 female, who was studying art. Now the group was mostly great. The only relatively minor issue was Dave, our DM, who was somewhat lacking in his social skills and tended to have very strong opinions about things he knew very little about. This is especially irritating when it was something that one of the rest of us knew a lot about, as he refused to back down even when he was clearly wrong. But I'm a math student, so I'm no stranger to folks with poor people skills, and it wasn't too big of a problem. I usually just tuned Dave out whenever he ranted. Anyway, we started our campaign in October. David created some homebrew setting, which was fantastic and in-depth, and Lily offered to do some artwork for it. So over the course of the next couple of months, she did character portraits, a few landscapes, and even did a painting of a few of the big battles. All of the art was really, really good, and it made the campaign much better. I have one of these battle paintings hung up on my flat. That's really cool.
Great person to have in the party there. Not so convinced about having the strong opinions and knows nothing guy. That's always a big red flag.
Listen, a lot of us who do nerdy stuff, we're socially awkward, but it's not okay when you start ranting about things that you don't know about, especially when there's other people in the room that do and you won't listen. That's annoying. That's super annoying.
I'm going to veer off into real world advice here, just for all the listeners. One of the biggest life lessons I've learned is that you always know a lot less about a subject than you think you do.
That's very true. Unless you're specialized in it or something, I suppose.
Unless you're an academic who has studied it all your life.
I'd say Neil deGrasse Tyson doesn't know a lot less than the rest of us when it comes to his speciality, but, maybe when it comes to D&D. Nah, he plays D&D.
Yeah, let's challenge him. I don't know how you challenge someone to a D&D, but let's challenge him. You man officially challenges Neil deGrasse Tyson to D&D. Answer or be a coward.
Around Thanksgiving time, though, Lily's workload had picked up, so she had to stop doing art for us. None of the rest of us had any artistic talent, unless you count painting 40K miniatures.
Yes, it does count. Fight me.
So we had to use stock pictures for new PCs. At some point, though, Dave taught himself how to use generative AI and decided to make a bunch of new portraits for us. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of AI art, but he'd already made them, so I accepted mine and we started using them. They were pretty cool, to be fair. His software allowed picture input, so the portraits were recognizable as us. This will be important later. He got really into the AI image creation, and he ended up making tons of pictures. With our permission, he made a Twitter account to post the pictures, which I followed and occasionally scrolled through. He posted pretty regularly, like new pictures every week, and it was kind of interesting to see the images of us in various scenarios. Unfortunately, this wasn't the only Twitter account that he'd made. There was a second account that he hadn't shared with us, featuring more questionable pictures. One of Zoe's flatmates stumbled across it while doing some research and recognized her. He showed her the account and she showed the rest of us. It was pretty horrifying, to be honest. There were dozens of images, each of our characters in various states of undress. We decided to confront Dave at the next session. As soon as I brought up the Twitter account, he went white. After about a second, he just bolted out of the house, leaving his stuff behind. We tried to contact him, but he blocked us on everything and nuked both Twitter accounts. As far as I'm aware, he moved house shortly afterwards, although whether he left the city or just moved across the street, I have no idea. So, yeah, there's probably adult material of me floating around the internet, which is slightly horrifying to think about.
Wow, there's a reaction. Dave messed up big time and completely violated boundaries and really did a horribly wrong thing there. However, his reaction is like, wow. To literally flee the city because of that. He didn't just nuke his Twitter account, he nuked his life.
Yeah, well, they didn't say that he left the city, they just said he moved house.
I will assume he left the city at this point.
Yeah, it's funnier if you think of it as he left the city. I like to think that he did. At least he knew he screwed up, although it would have been nice if he hadn't screwed up to begin with. I cannot imagine coming across a Twitter account and it's like, this is me, not me at the same time, but I don't have any clothes on and I'm doing stuff that I didn't consent to doing. What on earth?
What adds to the level of creep particularly is that it did have picture input of their real faces, so it was them as their D&D characters, and not just their D&D characters. If it was just their characters, that's messed up, but at least it doesn't come back to anyone in real life, necessarily. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he violated a few federal laws.
I don't know which ones, but at the very least, you definitely violated some social laws.
I would just like to give a special shout out to Zoe's flatmate, who was doing, quote unquote, research and found this.
I don't know what kind of research they were doing, but I'm glad they were doing it, whatever it was.
This next story was sent to us by a viewer. They didn't provide a name, so we're going to call them Asmodeus. If you have a story that you would like to send us, the email address is in the description below. Of Harpies and Handaxes by Asmodeus. Good day, fellow human. I just finished my daily existential crisis and thought you might like a mild horror story. Yes, we are definitely human. Thank you for acknowledging that.
We also just finished our daily existential crisis.
It was particularly riveting. This only technically counts as a D&D horror story because it took place in Baldur's Gate 3 multiplayer. But the bizarre event could only happen in a TTRPG style medium. The party is me, a drow barbarian, a Githyanki warlock, a tiefling bard, and a Weil as our NPC fourth. We were in a battle with 4 harpies in a battleground made up of cliffs and knee-deep water acting as rough terrain, with an additional mission of protecting an NPC child lured there by the harpies singing. Surprisingly, the escort mission wasn't the horror of this story. The kid was smart whenever he wasn't lured and would use disengage and dash actions to get away from the fight. The battle itself was very rough, difficult terrain, enemies who could ignore it all with flight, and one harpy would always set herself up to sing her siren song while her sisters attacked. It seemed like every other turn, everyone in my party would get lured and be sitting ducks for harpy attacks. Even after they were broken out of their trance by attacks, they'd likely fall prey again right after. It got so bad and our collective health so low that our warlock, their game host, reset the save to prevent a possible TPK. Funny enough, in both instances of this fight, my barbarian never once got lured. I guess he was too angry to pay attention to the singing.
That's a surprise, actually. You'd think that the barbarian would be the first one.
Yep, they'd be dropping their loincloth and running in straight away.
This has got to be a pretty frustrating combat. When you have party members that are constantly being put into a trance and not able to fight, I would definitely not enjoy that combat at all. I usually get frustrated when I'm playing a game and things like that happen.
You just spend all your time firefighting rather than actually fighting.
Yeah, it's like whack-a-mole with the lures.
After saves going, we had a better round against the Harpies. This is where the real punchline takes place. While our bard was healing himself, I was going to throw a hand axe at the Harpy next to him since I couldn't reach her due to the rough terrain. Somehow I wound up accidentally selecting the bard to attack. I was using a controller while playing, which downed him and put him on death saves. The funny thing about Baldur's Gate 3 is that in multiplayer modes, the player characters take their turns simultaneously if they're next to each other in initiative order. So our bard had just finished playing his instrument and healed himself when in the very next second, he got a throwing axe to the side of the head. The party killed the rest of the Harpies the next turn and we were able to help the bard right after. But the whole time the 3 of us are laughing at the absurdity of what just happened, with me repeatedly asking, how did that ever happen? Bard took the whole thing in stride and compared the blunder to, if this were an actual TTRPG, I had rolled a nat 1 on the throw and our DM decided to be a bit of a jerk. Since then, it's become a joke that whenever my barbarian is about to throw a weapon, the bard will instinctively duck.
I mean, at least everybody took that in stride. There's definitely a scenario in which the bard would have gotten super not okay with that. But all's well that ends well, I suppose. They won in the end, and the bard's still alive.
I mean, I don't approve of the save scumming, keeping going back until you get a favourable outcome, but, you know, you do you.
Everybody got their own style of playing. More power to them, I guess.
Although, as I keep saying, I am a big fan of consequences for that one, so the hand axe hitting the bard for that, if they were right next to the harpy, yeah, I could understand that. You know, that seems like a valid consequence for that. Sorry, OP.
Yeah, actually, that would be a pretty standard consequence for a nat 1 in most games I've played. Usually, if you have a party member right next to an enemy and you roll a nat 1, then the other person has to either dodge or save or just get hit.
Yeah, on a generous day, as a DM, I would give them a dexterity saving throw to get out of the way of that.
It did end up playing out a bit like a TTRPG, only in video game form, and that's kind of awesome. Hey Hugh.
Yes, man.
Why do wizards like Fireball so much?
I don't know. Why do they?
Because it's a well-rounded spell.
And with that, we have definitely not been two kobolds in a trench coat. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and make the necessary sacrifices to Tiamat. We'll see you next time.